Jujutsu Kaisen is absolutely insane right now, but there's even more going on than meets the eye. Yuji Itadori has finally returned to center stage in the story, and his new power is the only thing that can stop Sukuna, and I am not exaggerating. Yuji is the key to everything. He is humanity's only hope. Yuji was created as a result of Kenjaku's human experiment. He has the power to learn Sukuna's innate technique. He has the power to manipulate souls, and you have no idea what this man is actually capable of. If you've been underestimating Yuji up to this point because you've been more focused on Gojo and Sukuna, you gotta watch this video until the very end. You will not be disappointed. You guys know the drill. If you enjoy my JJK content and you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like and comment for that YouTube algorithm. And if you want to help this channel attain special grade status by hitting 2 million subscribers, do me a huge favor and subscribe right now. Finally, this video will of course contain Jujutsu Kaisen manga spoilers, so please proceed with caution. You have been warned. Back in chapter 238, we saw a demonic-looking Yuji attack Sukuna right after Sukuna's fight against Kashimo, and then the focus shifted to Kenjaku and his meme battle against the failing comedian Takaba. But while the meme fight has definitely been one of the fights of all time, to me the more interesting thing about the focus shifting to Kenjaku has been the information we are getting about Kenjaku's secret master plan that has been over 1,000 years in the making. A critical component of that plan is Yuji, and Yuji's very birth was orchestrated by Kenjaku for the specific purpose of creating an artificial sorcerer who could one day surpass even Sukuna himself. Remember all the way back to the first chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen when Yuji's dying grandpa tried to tell him about his parents, but Yuji just cut him off and said to stop trying to act cool before he dies. I really wish Yuji didn't stop his grandpa from talking about his parents, because as the story continued to unfold, the dark truth about Yuji's parents has been revealed bit by bit, and the more we learn, the more messed up it gets. As soon as we meet Yuji, we realize that he is superhumanly strong, although no reason is provided for this at first. Even back then, the story was hinting that something was off with Yuji, and that there was more to him than meets the eye. Soon after, we saw him eat one of Sukuna's fingers. Megumi was sure that this would kill him, but instead of dying, Yuji became a vessel for Sukuna. And to make things even crazier, once Sukuna enters his body through the cursed finger, Yuji is still able to prevent Sukuna from taking control, which is simply unheard of. Sukuna is literally the king of curses, history's strongest sorcerer, and Yuji is supposed to be just some regular high school kid who loves Jennifer Lawrence. But as we know now, Yuji is not just a regular person. Early on in the story, Gojo reveals that Yuji's ability to suppress Sukuna within his body even after consuming multiple fingers is an incredibly rare ability that only appears once in every 1,000 years. So, what makes Yuji so special? Why does he have superhuman strength and speed, and why does he have the power to suppress and control the King of Curses inside his body? The answer to this question goes all the way back to the very thing that Yuji's grandpa wanted to tell him in the first chapter of the story. It goes back to Yuji's parents, Jin and Kaori Itadori. In chapter 143, we saw a flashback that finally revealed Yuji's mom and dad for the first time. And this brief 2-page backstory reveals the dark truth. Yuji Itadori is not a normal human. He is a human experiment, and he was deliberately created by the evil sorcerer Kenjaku. The flashback shows Yuji's dad holding a baby Yuji and talking to Yuji's grandpa. The grandpa is trying to talk to his son about that woman, but Yuji's dad says that if the conversation is about her, he's just gonna leave. The grandpa says, "Jin, you can live your life however you like, but give up on that woman. You'll die." Jin replies by saying, "Don't talk about such things in front of Yuji. They say babies remember more than we think." The grandpa keeps going. He says, "I know you wanted a child and that didn't happen with Kaori, but her death was," and then he is interrupted by a woman saying, "Father-in-law, what are you talking about?" The woman is, of course, Yuji's mother Kaori, and this woman has a large scar on her forehead, the same type of scar that Geto develops after his body is hijacked by Kenjaku. So now we know what happened. Yuji's father Jin was in love with a woman named Kaori, and at some point she died, but Jin couldn't give up on Kaori and on the idea of having a family with her. Because of this, he accepted a dark deal with Kenjaku. Kenjaku used his innate technique to bring Kaori Itadori back to life. but he did so by simply hijacking her body. And then Jin and Kenjaku inside Kaori's body produced a child, Yuji. Yuji is biologically the son of Jin and Kaori, but the one who gave birth to him was not Kaori herself, but Kenjaku inside of Kaori's body. Yeah, like how freaking messed up is that? This immediately makes me question what Yuji's father was thinking. Did Kenjaku trick him into thinking that he could bring the real Kaori back? We do know that Kenjaku can access the memories of someone whose body he hijacked, so maybe he used Kaori's memories to copy her personality and make Jin think that it was really her, when in reality it was just Kenjaku pulling the strings. Or maybe Jin knew the truth, but he wanted a biological child with Kaori so badly that he simply didn't care, although I find that kind of hard to believe because Yuji's dad would have to be insane to be okay with something like that. The truth is that we've never actually seen Yuji's mom before she was hijacked by Kenjaku, so we don't know what she was really like. We only know what her curse technique was because it was revealed in chapter 208. When Kenjaku left Kaori's body, he still maintained the ability to use her technique. This technique allows the user to negate gravity, and the curse technique reversal of this power allows the user to amplify the gravitational pull around them. So, okay, now for the million-dollar question. Why in the world would Kenjaku go through the trouble of becoming Yuji's mother? Kenjaku is a 1,000-year-old sorcerer who is planning to use cursed energy to force everyone in Japan to evolve beyond humanity. So where does Yuji fit into all of this? The tragic truth is actually quite simple when you think about it. Throughout his 1,000 years of life, Kenjaku has conducted countless human experiments, including of course the creation of the cursed womb death paintings during the Meiji era. These experiments created cursed objects that possess mixed blood of both a cursed spirit and a human. And eventually, 3 of these cursed objects were incarnated into human flesh in the form of Choso, Eso, and Kechizu. The disturbing truth is that these 3 human experiments have a younger brother, and his name is Yuji Itadori. Even though we still don't know everything about Yuji's true origins, we know that he was deliberately created by Kenjaku as part of his human experimentation. And since Yuji was created some 150 years after Choso and the others, we can assume that Kenjaku made a lot of advancements in his experimentation techniques by the time he got around to creating Yuji. Kenjaku is the reason why Yuji has such a special superhuman body. And even now, nearly 250 chapters into the story, we still don't understand the full power and hidden potential of Yuji's body. But now that the story has truly kicked into high gear, we are finally about to find out. As I mentioned earlier, in chapter 238, Higuruma and Yuji attacked Sukuna following Sukuna's successful victories over both Gojo and Kashimo. In the final panel, we see that Yuji's arm has pointy demonic-looking nails and fingers, just like Sukuna did back when he was possessing Yuji's body. This has led to speculation that Gojo's prediction from way back in chapter 12 is finally coming true. If you'll recall, in chapter 12, Gojo said that in due time, Yuji's body would actually learn to use Sukuna's cursed technique. Meaning that even after Sukuna leaves his body, as he did when he decided to possess Megumi, Yuji will be able to essentially copy Sukuna's cursed technique. And Yuji may be about to use that very technique against Sukuna himself, meaning that we're gonna see something like Sukuna fighting Sukuna. Now, obviously, as the strongest sorcerer in history, Sukuna has some amazing curse techniques that would be an incredible asset for Yuji if he really gains the ability to use them. We are not 100% certain what Sukuna's original innate technique is, because he demonstrates the ability to use at least 2 distinct types of attacks. The first is the ability to launch invisible cuts and slashes at his opponent, and the second is the ability to launch fire-based attacks at his opponents, including fire arrows. Sukuna is also able to use reverse curse technique, which allows him to heal his injuries extremely quickly, including very serious injuries like lost limbs. Sukuna possesses the extremely rare ability to heal the bodies of other people using the reverse curse technique, and he can even use this to heal his own burnt out curse technique, as we saw during his fight against Gojo. Sukuna is capable of using domain amplification, which is an anti-domain technique that allows Sukuna to envelop himself in his own domain in order to resist the curse techniques and domain expansions of his opponents. These are all techniques that Yuji could also potentially learn to use now, and then there's the question of Sukuna's incredibly overpowered domain expansion. Sukuna's domain is called Malevolent Shrine, and it is one of the absolutely strongest domains in the history of Jujutsu Kaisen. When Sukuna expands his domain, a dark and creepy Buddhist shrine appears behind him. The domain's guaranteed hit attack is a ruthless and continuous slashing attack that will tear apart everything inside the domain except for Sukuna himself. There are two types of slashing attacks, cleave and dismantle, and the attacks will continue until Sukuna is weakened to the point that he can no longer maintain his own domain. Cleave is Sukuna's attack of choice for enemies who possess cursed energy, while Dismantle is used to destroy inanimate objects. Due to its ability to unleash a barrage of endless slashing attacks, Malevolent Shrine is essentially a weapon of mass destruction that can kill hundreds of civilians and destroy an endless number of objects within a 200-meter radius. On top of that, Sukuna is able to control the range of his domain within certain parameters, and he is capable of expanding his domain without actually closing the barrier. He used a binding vow to create an escape route from his domain in exchange for the ability to expand the effective range of his guaranteed hits. Since Malevolent Shrine doesn't have an outer barrier, you cannot destroy the domain just by destroying the barrier. The only way to destroy the domain is to injure Sukuna so severely that he can no longer maintain his own domain. In addition, Sukuna is able to change the conditions of his domain using a binding vow, and this allows him to do things like remove the domain's guaranteed hit effect in exchange for increasing the domain's overall power. Last but not least, Sukuna has the ability to transform his flesh. We first see this ability manifesting once Yuji consumes Sukuna's fingers and becomes his vessel. Even though Yuji is able to maintain control of his body for the most part, and he successfully prevents Sukuna from taking over, Sukuna is still able to manifest a mouth and eyes on Yuji's body through which he can see and speak. He is also able to do this against the host's will without having to actually take control over the host's body. And this ability to transform his flesh also allows him to attain his final form. Presumably, Sukuna started out as a normal human sorcerer, but he eventually developed the ability to grow 2 extra arms, 2 extra eyes, and an extra mouth on his stomach. This final form is the optimal form for a Jujutsu sorcerer in battle, and Sukuna managed to attain it by transforming his flesh. In chapter 238, Yuji seems to be exhibiting the early stages of this flesh transformation as his arms begin to turn demonic, with strange-looking flesh and long, pointy nails. But I know what you're thinking. Okay, sure, Yuji is a superpowered human experiment who is clearly far stronger than the average human. And sure, his body may be learning to use Sukuna's cursed technique. That's great and all, but that doesn't guarantee that Yuji will be able to actually defeat Sukuna, even if he learns to use Sukuna's cursed technique. After his battle with Gojo, we know for certain that Sukuna is the strongest sorcerer in history, and he had literal centuries to master and perfect his own cursed techniques. Even if Yuji unlocks the ability to use that same power, there is no way that he will instantly become as strong as Sukuna. Even though he is a quick learner, Yuji would need years of training to get anywhere close to Sukuna's level. But there is one thing that could set Yuji apart from Sukuna, and that could actually give him an advantage over the King of Curses. In fact, this is the very reason why Kenjaku created Yuji in the first place. He designed Yuji to become the King of Souls. When Kenjaku created the death paintings about 150 years ago, you will notice that their powers were related to the body, like blood manipulation and decay, as in decay of the flesh. But I believe that 150 years later, Kenjaku perfected his method of human experimentation. And he realized that in order to create the perfect artificial Jujutsu sorcerer, one who could rival even Sukuna himself, Kenjaku would have to create someone who can manipulate more than just blood and flesh. He will have to create someone who can manipulate the soul itself. We all know by now that Yuji has the unique ability to hurt not only the body, but also the soul, which he proved in his battle against Mahito. Mahito confirms that Yuji possesses a unique understanding of the human soul and that he is aware of the contours of the soul. But Mahito just assumes that this is because he has Sukuna's soul inside his body at that time. And yet, even after Sukuna leaves Yuji's body, Yuji's special connection with soul-related powers continues. In chapter 222, we also saw Yuji apparently switching his soul with Kusakabe so that he can train martial arts inside of Kusakabe's body while Kusakabe takes possession of Yuji's body. Yuji's soul also managed to survive the death of his body for an extended period of time before being revived by Sukuna. Most people assume that this was all Sukuna's doing, but I don't think that just anyone could have survived this situation even if Sukuna wanted to bring them back to life. I believe that Yuji's soul is unique, and that is part of the reason why he survived. We have to remember that in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, a soul is an actual entity that exists, and that souls do survive the death of the body. Yuji's soul survived the death of his body, and when Gojo seemingly dies, his soul is transported to an airport where he meets with the souls of his long-dead comrades, and he learns information from them that Gojo himself had no way of knowing. This proves that Gojo isn't just imagining his friends at the airport, he is actually communicating with their souls. And these souls continue to exist even long after their bodies died. So no, the soul in Jujutsu Kaisen is not just a symbolic religious concept, it is a real substance that can be manipulated in battle, just like Mahito was able to do. I think that Kenjaku created Yuji as a human experiment, not just because he wanted him to become Sukuna's vessel, but also because he wanted him to become the ultimate Jujutsu sorcerer. The one who could one day learn to use Sukuna's own curse technique, and then surpass even Sukuna himself with his own innate ability to manipulate souls. Sukuna is the king of curses, but Yuji just might be the king of souls, the soul king, if you will. And Yuji might be the only sorcerer in history who has a real chance to surpass Sukuna, just as his third parent Kenjaku had always intended. What do you guys think? Is Yuji's secret innate technique the ability to manipulate souls? And will this be the power that allows him to make the difference in a battle against Sukuna? Don't forget to share your thoughts down in the comments below. If you're looking for more epic JJK content to watch right now, check out our full Jujutsu Kaisen playlist, link on screen and in the description. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like and comment right now for that YouTube algorithm. And if you want to help this channel attain special grade status by hitting 2 million subscribers, do me a big favor and subscribe right now. We are so close and every single subscription counts.